I don't know, episode 5, 4, 5, I don't know, somewhere in there. 5, I was just yelled at as 5. So today what we're talking about is we're going to kind of piggyback off our last episode. Our last episode we tested a turbocharger. It's our kind of our drop-in replacement for the second gen Dodges. It's about a 40 horsepower increase. It flows more than the HX35. It gives it pretty much stock spool up. It's as close as you can get to stock without being stock, but it does give us about a 40 horsepower bump. So what was interesting, if we watched last time, you saw the peak power happened around 22 to 2400, I don't remember, and then it just nosedived. It just fell like a brick. And I told you about the difference, or I talked about volumetric efficiency and how little chargers hurt it. We talked about how a tight turbine can really hurt volumetric efficiency. So I wanted to talk more about that today and help people learn how to tune their turbo systems. And so the picture you see in front of you is we're going to do a demonstration of what we call our turbo tuner. And I'm going to show you how this works so you can see what's going on. For those who don't know, with your actuator, I'm going to give a little demonstration here, and then we're going to go over the dyno, and we're going to do some tuning with this machine. The reason we're using this is so we can quickly make changes, so we can see what happens to the power and to different things with simply tuning our wastegate. And what's happening is we are externally changing volumetric efficiency with our wastegate and turbine housing. In our very first episode, we talked about calculating your volumetric efficiency based on cubic inches and RPM, and I told you then, which is true, once that engine is put together, the VE of that engine doesn't change. But we can, while the VE doesn't change of the actual engine, we can change the volumetric efficiency of the system. And you have to visualize with me here while I'm telling you this. If you can imagine, well, just so you know, there are two pressure readings that are very important whenever you're turbocharging an engine, and it all has to do everything between the turbo and the engine. So you have two sides. You're between the turbo and the engine on the compressor side, and between the turbo and the engine on the exhaust side. And those two pressure readings are very important to power production, because those are pressures that the piston actually sees. And so if you can imagine with me, when the intake valve opens, okay, the intake valve opens and we have, let's say we're at 45 pounds of boost, okay, so that valve opens and we have a 45 psi pressure there, and you have your piston, which has an area of, so you have so many pounds per square inch, you have so many square inches of your piston, which is, let's say it's a 4-inch bore. What is area? 4 times pi r squared, so 4 times 3, you have basically a little over 12 and a half or so square inches, times 45 pounds of pressure per square inch. So 45 times 12, that's going to give you about 540 pounds. If my math is right in my head, which it may not be, 45 times 12 is whatever that ends up being. I'm going to guess 540. So you have about 540 pounds of pressure pushing down on your piston. This is not combustion pressure. This is simply boost pressure on your piston head, pushing it down. That's free power, right? We love it. So that's cool, but we also have a pressure in the exhaust side. And so if we measure that pressure and it's also 45, well, then we have to push that same 580 pounds out against the piston. So we have a net zero. And that's great. Net zero is good. If we can get that, we've done real well. Some people achieve a little better than that, and most people achieve worse. And so what happens is once your turbo reaches its peak power, your turbine starts to go what they call to choke. It can no longer flow additional flow. And so what happens oftentimes is your torque curve starts to fall dramatically, and oftentimes your horsepower stays flat or starts to drop as well, but it no longer climbs. And so you've hit your peak power. And if we can imagine, if the pressure, as the pressure in that gets worse and worse, we have a negative loss. If we have that same 45 coming in, 540 pounds, and we have 60 coming out, then we have a big loss. We're having 720 pounds I'm just going off my head here, I haven't figured this out. So 720 pounds out, 540 pounds in. You know, that's about a 200-pound difference for every single revolution. Well, every other it's a 4-stroke, so every other revolution. So we have that net loss on every piston, every other revolution, and that is a loss on power. Even though we have the same 45 pounds of boost, we may make less power as a result of that negative difference across the piston. So what we're going to do here with this guy right here is we're going to show first how this works so you can know how to wastegate. And we're going to show on the dyno how properly tuning one of these wastegates actually can yield more power and better EGT control, better, and you can actually I think we may make more power at a lower boost number because we're going to bring together those two in and out on that turbocharger. On a single charger of this size, the size that's on the test truck, we're not going to get 1-to-1 at the RPMs we're interested in. We will at lower RPMs, but since this is a stock style, the turbo I have on there now is no longer stock, it's a different one, but it's still very small. It's very much a street-oriented, very street-friendly, capable of about 500 to 550 horsepower or so. We probably won't get that high today. We'll get that high corrected like on most dynos, but uncorrected will probably be the 460-ish range at our elevation here. So with that being said, let's look at this thing. What this is here is our turbo tuner. Okay, so right now I have this thing wide open. I'm going to show you what happens when you get a turbo from the factory. So right now this is wide open, air's flowing through it like it's not even here. We're going to see when this thing opens and cracks at pressure. I have an air compressor here with a little regulator, so I'm going to simulate turbo boost getting up here. So right now turbo boost is, you can see here, it's about 5. Now we're about to 10. Okay, it just cracked. You probably didn't see it. You can hear that this is no longer in tension. Okay, so that means there's no tension on this thing. So now at 10 psi with this, the way it comes from the factory, which is just pressure to this wastegate head here, is starting to divert drive pressure. We're starting to lose energy. Not a lot, but some. And as you increase your boost, let's go up to 15. You see it starting to move some more. Now we're losing more drive. We're up to 20 now, losing more drive. And so what this is doing, this is diverting exhaust energy away from the turbine wheel, is dumping it behind it in the exhaust housing. And it does that to control your boost. This is what a wastegate does. It controls your boost levels of your vehicle. As your boost continues to climb, you'll see it moves more and more. Still opening, still traveling. About 35 psi. Yeah, 35 is where it stopped. So 35 psi, this thing is now full open. The wastegate is at max capacity, and you most likely aren't making much more than 35 pounds of boost. If you have a lot of fuel, RPM, you may overcome the wastegate and make some more. In general, this is what's going to stop you from making power. So a lot of guys, what they do is they just simply, they'll plug the wastegate, they'll get an adjustable boost elbow, and they'll crank it in there so the wastegate sees no pressure or very little. So I'm going to simulate that now with this thing here. We're going to crank this thing way in, and this is going to be similar to having no wastegate function. So as I increase the boost, it's closed. We're at 30 now. 30 psi, hasn't moved. 35, still no pressure over here. 40, 45, no pressure. So now you're just going by what your turbine housing can do. This is like if you bought a turbine housing that didn't have a wastegate function at all, which you can do, but most guys, when they buy a wastegate, they get a smaller AR here, so they can get the benefit of spool up, and they can still control boost with this. And so that's what it does when you pinch the wastegate closed. There's no movement here, and you're just at the mercy of your turbine housing. So the better thing to do, if you have a turbine housing, there's a reason they want a wastegate, and we'll show you that, because you can actually if you have a smaller housing, you're going to want to divert some of that exhaust in order to not... Ooh. Looky here, we got this cool little thing I'll show you. We can't use that one for the test, but I can show you. Here's the wastegate valves. This is what we're looking at here. So here's what happens. The exhaust comes in right here, okay? I'm trying to move this where you can see it. I'll move this over. Hope I can move it back. We can see it. So the exhaust comes in here. It goes in around this turbine housing and now at the exhaust. Do you see that big channel right here? This is your wastegate path. So what happens is when this thing opens, there's two pucks right here. These things open up. That's when this thing moves right here. Okay? When this thing moves, it's going to open up these pucks right here. It's going to let the exhaust out here, and it's going to go down this channel out here around. It's diverting exhaust away from your turbine wheel out the exhaust. And so that's what the turbine shaft, or the turbo wastegate does. A lot of people know that, but for those who don't, it's very simple. It's simply opening up these holes. It lets it out there, and that's how it works. And so with this, we want to control that. And so if you don't open it and your AR is too small, you're going to run into a lot of drive pressure issues. And I'm going to show you that on the dyno. The AR we have in the turbo on the dyno is smallish. It's not as small as this one here. On this is a 0.70. The one on the dyno, it's bigger. So on this one, there'd be even more of an exaggerated difference than there is going to be on the dyno, but you'll still get to see how it works. And so what we're going to do now is, I don't even know, let's look at this thing. So let's say we want, what this does here, just so you know what this does, I want you to know what I'm going to be doing in the dyno so you can see what I'm doing, because it's going to be hard to show you in dyno, but you'll get an idea of what's going on. I'm going to use this to control the wastegate. What this does is this stops all pressure going to the wastegate head until my preset amount. The more I turn it in, the more pressure it needs to get past this valve. The more I turn it out, the less pressure it needs to get past this valve. How it works is once you get your pressure, let's pretend that I have this set to 20 psi. I need 20 psi to get past this valve. After that, it goes on a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I have 21 psi, I'll have 1 psi here. 25, I'll have 5. Once you crack your point, this matches your boost over the crack point increase. So if you increase 10, this will be at 10. So we're going to show you that here right now. And so let's see. I'm going to go. Well, let's just random this here. I don't know where we're at. Let's try this. Here we're at right there. Okay, so we're at 10 psi right now, and you can notice this has not moved. So at 10 psi, this was cracked before. At 10 psi boost, this was loose. This is now still very tight. All the spring pressure is still on it because, as you can see, nothing's gone through. So right now we're 15. Okay, somewhere between 15 and 20 it cracked. Let's find out where by doing some simple math. Let's go up to 30. So at 30 psi here, we're at 26-ish over there. So, excuse me, 16. So this opened around 14 psi, 14 to 15. I must have missed it. And so, now we gotta adjust these for the camera to see them better. I can't. How's that? Is that better? Gotta try and get so you guys can see what we're doing here. Good? Okay. And so now we're 30 psi here, 15 here. So what's happened is we're now at 35. Let's go to 35. Okay, we're at 35 and 20 here. So we're basically around 15 psi difference. So before at 35 pounds of boost, this thing was full open. Right now it's just cracked. And so you're going to see a lot more boost. Your turbo response is going to increase, similar to if you plugged it off, which is, that's what people like to plug it off for, because then you get this really good turbo response. You don't have any of this early cracking that's going to make your turbo lazy. The problem is you're going to run into drive pressure problems, especially on like these housing 0.70. You're going to run into real drive pressure issues, especially on any kind of performance turbo. 0.80, a little better, but let's talk about the S300. We're going to be testing all these SXE turbos. The smallest turbine housing offered from Borg with these in their catalog is a 0.88, and most ourselves and most other people will sell it to 0.70. If you want to max out the turbo, they want you to put a 1.0 on that sucker. And so we're having a 0.70, 70% of what they recommend for max power. You're going to run into a lot of problems with this if you just pinch this wastegate shut. I mean, you're not going to, as far as power production is concerned. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I mean, if you want, we can, well, wrong way. If we crank this up a little more, you'll see there'll be a bigger difference. Let's do about a 3/4 of a turn. Let's see where we're at now. Oh, let me go back. Let me open this all the way. Okay. So let's see where we're at here. So 15 we haven't moved. 20 we haven't moved. 25 we still are under. Okay, so between around 25 or so we crack. So 30 psi now, we're about 6 or 7 into the Wastegate. So this thing hasn't moved yet. We're still, it's got a little bit on it. But so this thing might crack even before 10 psi, because if it hadn't cracked, this would be tight. So since I can move, this means at 8 psi, it is no longer holding pressure on this thing. So it might even crack even earlier than that. And so you're going to want to, when you get playing through Wastegate tuning, this is good to have. One thing, the reason I designed this, there are boost controllers in the market. I'll just tell you why I designed this. The boost controllers that are out there that are adjustable like this. I mean, I'm not talking about a boost elbow. Some guys like a boost elbow or a spring gate. I've never been able to make good power with a spring gate compared to proper wastegating, but a lot of guys like a spring gate. And so the reason I made this is because most of the boost controllers, if you go and research manual boost controllers, they all have what's called a bleed orifice. And so what they do is they have a bleed orifice, so when you let off the throttle, the boost that is in here has to have somewhere to go. There's other things that will stop the flow through, just like this does, and you get these different ratios, just like this does. And they all have a bleed hole, so when you let off the throttle, this bleed out. It bleeds constantly, all the time. On a gas here, it doesn't matter, because gasoline vehicles travel down the road under vacuum until they're at, a turbocharged gasoline needs a lot of power to overcome vacuum to go into boost. That's why those, if you get a gasoline boost gauge that has a vacuum gauge and a boost gauge, it goes negative to positive. Because when they're cruising down the road, they're at vacuum, so there's nothing coming out the bleed orifice, and so you can put it in your cab. It doesn't bother you. Well, in a diesel, as you well know, we cruise down the road at 10 psi. If you're towing down the road, it might be 20, 30 psi just going down the road, and so you're going to have 30 psi, squealing past that hole. It's going to be pretty annoying in that cab, I know, because it's what I tried years ago when I wanted to start playing around with boost controllers and tuning in my different combinations of compound turbos, and I couldn't put it in the cab because it was so loud and annoying. And so anyway, so all of this stuff is contained. The valving is internal. There's no leaks. There's no boost leaks. There's no bleed orifice. It all happens internally. When you let off the wrong way. When you let off the turbo boost, you'll see it bleeds it back out. There's no bleed orifice, and so that's why I designed this, because I want to be able to have this kind of tuning in the cab while I'm driving down the road. When I have compounds, I tune them differently for different situations. If I'm towing versus racing, you don't want the wastegate tuning the same, and we'll go over that in a future turbo school. But for today, we're going to show you how you can affect volumetric efficiency with wastegate control on these tight turbine housings, and show you how you can actually make more power with less boost, because we want to overcome those differential pressures going across your pistons. So now we're going to go from here over to the car, and give us a second while we move our cameras, and we're going to start playing with that in just a second. Okay, so we're setting up these cameras. We're going to have two camera angles here. We're going to have one just showing the engine because that's fun to watch. Another camera angle, it's going to be a little bit bumpy, so we're going to put it as a small screen so it doesn't make you sick watching it, because it's going to be in my lap. And we're going to try to, what we're going to try to do is show you the gauges. So I'm going to show you where my turbo tuner is in this one. Hold on, let me see. Is that camera on? The one in the truck? Alright, so down here, I've taken that turbo tuner and we've mounted it right here. Can you see this, Lon? So this is this is that same knob I was playing with over there. This is our turbo tuner mounted in this truck so I can tune it as I'm driving down the road. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do pulls, and I'm going to show you with it all the way open. So you can see what kind of boost make and power make. I'm going to close it off so as I pinch the wastegate off. You've heard people do that. And then we're going to tune it. We're actually going to tune it and see if we can increase power and affect our EGT without changing our fueling. We're only going to change our tuning on the wastegate, and we're going to tune it to our current level of fueling. So hang on for a minute while I try to set this camera up in my lap. Get another microphone. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is going to go in my lap. Okay, so I got Will in here with me. We're going to start this truck up, get it warming up. Now I'm going to work on getting this camera set up so you can see these gauges while we warm this truck up. Come clear up here, don't we? Okay, so what we have here, this is our boost. So this is between compressor and engine. This is drive pressure. This is the amount of pressure between. This is the oh boy. Hope you don't get dizzy watching these gauges, but it's the best we can do with this thing. Hold on. So this is boost, this is drive pressure, this is between the engine and the turbocharger. This is EGT, this is a 2000 degree gauge. So right here is 1600 degrees. Down there is 1800 degrees, and then there's 2000. We're gonna be seeing where we can get temperature-wise on these. So hang on for a minute right now. I'm gonna calibrate the dyno to this vehicle. We gotta set the wheel speed so we can get an accurate reading of torque and horsepower. So we're just gonna do some quick runs, warm up the vehicle a little bit, and get it set up. So here we go. You can see right now our boost and our drive are kind of equal. The drive pressure is 100 psi gauge and the boost is a 60, so they're not going to be the same needle position, but the number is the same.
Let me know when you're at 2000.
Now. Yep, looks good.
Looks good.
Okay, so we calibrated our wheel speed with our dyno, so now we'll be able to have our good torque readings. And we're going to start now. Right now, I'm going to adjust my tuner. Hold on. Okay, right now we're wide open, as if it's not even there. So what this is going to simulate, when you get a turbocharger, it's going to have a little brass fitting that has a little silicone line going from your compressor housing to your wastegate head. And this is going to simulate that, you know, with no interference. So we're going to just, well, let me warm my truck up a little bit here before I start laying into it. Don't want to blow a head gasket here the first run of the day. Just give us a few minutes while we warm it up here.
You want to do a half pull at half throttle, just a light power run?
Yeah, we'll do like a light power run, kind of get some heat into it a little bit here.
Okay.
What we're going to do is we're going to watch the boost gauge and the drive pressure gauge. So we're at 10. So we're at 20 pounds of boost. We're at 20 pounds of drive. Right now we're 1-to-1. We're basically even right now. We're going, the motor's at its own VE. We're not affecting it with the engine because we are at 20. Oh, now we're getting a higher RPM, and that's hurting us. We're now at 20 pounds of drive and 15 pounds of boost, and that happens. Dyno's going to stop. We're going to talk about this for a second. So, what you saw happen there is turbochargers have a certain RPM they're going to like for their AR and their engine size and so forth. So we were 20 to 20, 1-to-1, up until about 2600 RPM. At that point, we started reaching choke just by RPM in this turbocharger. So we started getting to where we were 20 pounds of drive, and we were down to about 15 pounds of boost. And that happens often when you'll see your drive pressure start to climb in relative to your boost as your RPMs climb. So oftentimes they'll be 1-to-1 at a certain RPM on any turbo. But a lot of guys will say, well, I'm 1-to-1 up to 45 pounds of boost. Well, really they're 1-to-1 at 45 pounds of boost at a given RPM. If they keep climbing RPM, they will eventually no longer be 1-to-1, and that difference in pressure across the pistons guaranteed. Yeah, let's do a 30 PSI running. We're going to do the same thing up to 30 PSI now. Still don't want to give it the full wood yet, but we'll do another little test at about 25 PSI. Hold on. It may not get much more than 30 with the wastegate where it is. Okay, we're going to do a run now at 25 PSI, see what happens. Okay, this is me holding it, so 25 PSI. We're actually better. Our drive is lower than our boost right now. Now they're converging. With that, we'll have enough heat to start putting our foot to it. Is it stopping the dyno? Taking it, is it not doing that? Okay, there we go. Okay, so this first pass, we're going to do a full power pass. We're going to record from 2,000 RPM to 2,800 RPM. We're going to watch our EGT and drive and boost. Right now the wastegate is full open, just like as if that controller was not there. Let's see what kind of power we make and what kind of boost we make. Here we go. Okay, you watch drive and EGT and I'll watch boost. I'm going to slow down. Alright, here we go. So 35, the wastegate opened, down to 25. We got this, in case you didn't notice, we have a little bit of an exhaust leak under our hood. But it's after the turbo, so it doesn't hurt performance. It's just an exhaust leak after we're not losing drive pressure. It just makes a mess. We'll fix that later. Okay, so boost spiked to 35 PSI, then dropped down and held 25 PSI. What did drive pressure do?
Drive pressure hit 30, and then it looked to me like it fell to right around 25, 26 PSI.
Okay. What?
EGT. I didn't watch it the whole way. It got over 1400.
Did it? 14-ish or so? How's the... You want to hop out and check our fitting real fast? Just make sure it didn't blow off. Okay. I'm gonna do one more run, the same exact run, and we're gonna pay a little bit closer attention to EGT. Okay, here we go. So 1350 was max EGT. We had about the same readings on the boost and drive. At that low PSI, we're probably able to control it. We're both probably pretty similar. We need a lot more RPM to get a real difference because the boost is so low. What was our power on that?
394.6, so 395 uncorrected.
395 uncorrected, 460 corrected. So that run right there is about 460 on a normal dyno, to the ground about 400-ish, a little shy of 400 if you're going to go to a track. So now we're going to do the same run. I'm not changing the fuel. I'm simply going to close the wastegate. Like if you had your buddy say pinch it off or disconnect it. That's what we're going to do with the controller. I'm going to crank it up and see what happens.
Simulated inertia for now, so you should do one more run.
We're going to do one more run. The load.
I can't remember if it was on or off, so I just toggled it. I can't remember.
So if it's gray, is it on or off?
I don't know. It was green before, and I just made it gray. And we were playing with it yesterday, that other truck, weird race truck we were playing with. So
we're going to do one more test. We need to change. We want to make sure we're running this thing right. Hold on a second.
Sure it's low.
No, that was less.
Okay, so it was loaded.
Yeah, it was loaded.
Alright.
Yeah, I thought it had to be green to be on.
My bad.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go down here, way down low where I have the thing. I don't even think you can see this. I'm going down here. I'm gonna crank this wastegate shut. Like not even there. Our boost is gonna pick up dramatically. Our drive pressure is going to increase dramatically, and so will our EGT. All right.
Something interesting to note: that quick sweep you did.
It
picked up almost
20 horsepower.
Almost
14 horsepower. Oh, 10 to 14.
Went from 395 to 410, so 15 horsepower.
They're way higher RPM.
Yeah, way higher RPM. And I watched the drive pressure. It didn't blow the wastegate open as fast, so that's why I was able to spike a higher number because the wastegate stayed closed just a little longer before it caught up. Opened it.
Okay.
So all that plumbing,
yes, right.
4 feet of tubing to fill up with pressure before it.
Yeah, so if you heard him on that, I hope it's pretty interesting. Okay, now the wastegate is closed. I anticipate more power and more EGT and all that stuff. So I'm going to watch boost and drive. You're going to watch EGT and drive. Hopefully we both see the two and see what we get. Okay, the only change I've made is my wastegate tuning. Let's see what it does to the tuning of the turbo. £45 of boost, 60 pounds of 1700. Need to run a little bit higher maybe. Okay, 45 pounds of boost, the whole 42, 45 the whole way through.
Crept right up to about 70.
About 70 on the drive, so we had a way big difference. On the lower power, we were pretty much 1-to-1 the whole way through. This time our drive went to 70, our boost is at 40, it's a 30 PSI, 25 to 30 PSI difference. we're still going to pick up power because our boost is so much more. Let's see what we ended up getting. What did we end up getting?
449.6 uncorrect.
So 449.6 uncorrected, 526. Is that 526 corrected? So yeah, we just picked up, what's that, 40, 50 horsepower. So your buddy's right. Close off that wastegate. Make a bunch more power. But is there more to be had? The heat was a lot more too. Last time we were at 1350. This one is creeping up on 1800. So quite a bit more heat with that. Now we're gonna start tuning the wastegate. So now I'm gonna go the other direction here and see if we can't make some changes.
So you're loosening the knob, which
yes, I'm loosening the knob.
which allows more.
It allows air through at an earlier rate, and then it allows that same 1-1 ratio. So we're just gonna go right back to like almost nothing, and then we're gonna go in just a little bit, see what that does. We're gonna go. Let's try that. Now we'll see what kind of boost we get, see what kind of drive we get, and see if we pick up any power or lose power. Did we go enough? Not enough? We'll find out here in just a second.
Get the RPM any higher? And
Yeah.
keep it 24.
Take me to 3. Okay, here we go. New wastegate tuning done. Let's see what happens. 40. So we're still dropping. Didn't quite hit 1600 on the EGT, did we?
Drive pressure fell down to about 35 if I had to guess on that gauge. Peaked at 40 and came down.
Okay. 440. So we lost 10 horsepower. We also lost a lot of heat. We didn't even touch 1600 degrees. We're about 1500 to 1550.
So that means we lost 200, almost 250 degrees
Oh,
on the EGT.
Yep.
Drive pressure was way better, which helps keep those gaskets,
Right.
and the exhaust manifold intact.
But we're going for more. We're going to try this. Those are really good readings, so let's try see if we can get those good readings at a higher boost. I'm going to go half turn, because now we're making difference. We do half turn on that of more. I guess you'd say with this half turn I am blocking the air from coming in that much longer, and we're going to see what happens here. Let's go.
You're letting less total pressure to the wastegate.
Exactly. Yes.
So it won't open as far.
Exactly. So not only is it going to open later, it's not going to open as far, like you just said. So that should we're going to find out, is it opening far enough or not. That's what we're going to tune. We're tuning this right now. Here we go. Okay.
So drive pressure hit 50, settled down to almost 40, and then climbed back up to about 45 as the RPMs came up.
Okay. The boost peaked about 42, fell down to 30. I don't know. It's hard to see. Between 35 and 40, I think, for the run. EGT touched 1600 at the very, very end of the run. So we got 444. Was our best so far? 444, 445, something like that.
I think that tried our best.
So now with this wastegate tuning, we have tied our best numbers, but we did it with a lot less boost. We did it with a lot less EGT, and I still think we might beat it here in a second because our drive to boost is still awesome. We know we can make more boost because we know that from last time when we closed the wastegate we made 45, and now we're not even to 40 yet, and we just tied the power. So what we're going to do now is just keep tuning. We're going to go down the road here on the dyno. I'm going to crank up the boost a little more, another half turn. Okay. And right now we're looking at the traces right now. And here in the cab, I think we have tied our power number. Hold
Very
on.
close. It's saying within 7. But I think the other one was 440. I can't remember.
The last one was 440.
The last one was 444. And I think the highest with the wastegate all the way tight did 440.
So we beat it then? We already beat it?
Yeah, I think we just beat it by 4.
Yeah. So we just beat our wastegate pinched with less boost. At 45, we made 400, and we now made more power with less boost. I still.
You made another 4 horsepower on there, right?
So we were 4 horsepower over our highest run so far, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna. I just gave it another half turn of that turbo tuner. Still have not changed any fuel settings. All we're doing is tuning the wastegate, and since our drive pressure and our boost pressures are still so good, we're gonna turn it up some more until we get to where they start getting bad, and that should be our maximum power. So here we go. It looks like our EGT was at 1600, maybe towards 3000 RPM, just past a little bit. We're getting out of the efficiency range of this turbo.
Drive pressure spiked about 55 or so, and then it leveled off down around 48.
And 48.
Held.
Boost, I think, spiked to 45, then held like 41, 42, my guess. What was our power?
45.8.
445.8. So we didn't kind of, maybe that's where we're at here.
Another horse is all.
1 horsepower. EGT was still really 1600-ish or so. Well, let's try a little bit more, see what happens, and see if there's any difference here.
Should we tighten it up? You'll length the wastegate open a little bit less.
A little bit less.
On the top end.
Because we're still not terrible. I mean, so tell me again what the drive dropped to?
About 48 psi.
48.
It spiked about 55, settled down to maybe 46, and then climbed up to about 48.
Okay. All right, let's see.
What was the boost number on that?
The boost spiked to, I think, almost 45. Then it dropped when the wastegate opened to about, I can't remember if it was the high 30s or the 40s. I'm watching that, and I'm watching the dyno on the stop. I'm kind of back and forth. And
Need one more set of eyes.
yes.
For instant replay.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But I did give us a little bit more wastegate. Let's see if we've gone too far now. We're now a little bit horsepower. We're more power than we are pinched, and we are doing it with less boost, and we're doing it with a lot less heat. We're still 200 degrees under what we were before.
And the engine's more heat soaked now.
Yeah, the engine's more heat soaked. You're going to make less power for every run.
Once we get the best here, I think as a final run, you should crank the wastegate as tight as it'll go again after the motor's all heat soaked and see
what it does.
where it ends up after it's all hot.
Yeah, that's true. That was one of our first runs.
Horsepower, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and we've made an adjustment. Let's see what happens.
Holding about 52 psi, spiked to around 60. BGT got a little bit over 1600, it's a little hotter.
Okay. Boost was 40, stayed right at 40, I think, for the most part.
Or 46.7.
So we gained another horsepower. One more. So we're 6 over what we did before. Okay. $2,500.
Swinging at 2,500 RPM.
Interesting. So tell me again, drive was at 58 and dropped to what?
Hit about 60 and settled in around 52.
Around 52. And boost is like, so we're about 10 psi difference. So still a lot better than the 30 we had to start with. So even though we're about making almost as much boost as we were before, because that's like 45 and holding. So we're creeping up on our boost number while having a lot better drive. Let's try a touch more. Our heat's getting a little bit warmer now. Let's go a little bit more on that. See what happens. Okay, see what we got. What was drive on that one?
About 55 at the top. It spiked up over 60, 62, 63.
And then it dropped to about 55. Boost, see around mid 41, 42 again. Lost power.
42.
So we lost some power.
Made it at 2600 RPM.
Interesting. So we just lost power. I'm going to back it up again. Do another run, and then we're going to compare. We're going to do another run with the wastegate pinched off to compare its similar engine temperatures. So I just backed off a little bit because we just lost some power. So we're going back down. We've hit our peak somewhere, and we're going back down. So I just open the wastegate a little bit more, meaning it's going to travel a little further, open a little earlier. With the amount I'm turning, it's going to be minuscule differences, very, very little difference, because we're trying to hit the sweet spot here, which is going to be, you don't know where it's going to be, it's all trial and error, but let's see what we get right now. And maybe it's just getting heat soaked or the engine fan turned on, who knows. Maybe we're out of gas.
Low on fuel, huh? Fuel light came on?
Yeah, we're getting a little fuel pressure. We'll try. There we go. May have opened that more than I anticipated. Kind of dropped a lot, didn't it?
You dropped it quite a bit.
Oh boy. Let's turn off our camera. What did you get?
435.
Oh, I opened it way too much, didn't I?
Lost power.
Okay, so I opened it too much. We're getting kind of hot here too. The webcam is stopped. Hold on, we gotta fix our camera. Hold on, everybody. I'm gonna grab it real fast. No, see if you can. Phone ring. Okay, let's do one more run, then we're going to pinch the wastegate off. Our test wheel's about out of fuel.
Wastegate a little tighter.
A little tighter, yep. Just blow off our exhaust. Something happened there. Now let's see what the dyno shows. .434, so I don't think it's a fuel pressure.
Could be the fuel tank's pretty low.
Yeah.
Fuel light came on.
Well, we might be losing a little bit of fuel pressure here. It shouldn't be dropping like this now. new quick.
Let me fix the exhaust because it popped off. Is this the last run?
Last run.
No, it's halfway off, so
All right,
it's
close.
the shop up, I guess. Made really good power numbers.
Is that a good one? Not the low fuel pressure hurt it.
Look at that idle, so the fan clutch disengaged.
Oh, same. I think we're out of fuel. We're not making any changes. I think we're out of fuel pressure.
Grab fuel.
Well, we're going to cut the dyno off because we think we're out of fuel. But hold that idle for a second. That guy warmed down, cool down for a minute while I sum this up. So the turbocharger that we have on this vehicle now has a large enough AR that you may not need, that the wastegate, you almost could run it without a wastegate because it's quite large. Not large enough to not need a wastegate. You still need a wastegate for sure, but it is not gonna, what I'm excited to, and the reason I wanted to show you this today is so you can see what we're doing. You can see what we're going to be doing as we test these turbos. As we do this turbo series, we're going to be doing all of our turbos, and we're going to be tuning the wastegates this way every week. So you'll know when I say I'm turning the wastegate up or down, this is what we're doing. And I anticipate with the tighter ARs, the .70s and these SXEs, we'll see, even with this one we saw a change until we ran out of fuel. But as the SXEs come on with these tighter turbine housings with these bigger flowing compressors, it's going to make an even bigger difference. And so that now you know how we're tuning the wastegate and how we're going to, for these future dyno sessions. And so we made our most power with our drive pressure and our boost pressure dang near close. There's less boost than the higher wastegate settings and a lot less heat. So our best run was right under 1600 degrees, boosted on 40, and one of our worst runs, well, the worst one was no wastegate, or the wastegate wide open, so that was worse. But with the wastegate pinched, we had 1800 degrees, 440 horsepower. We made a little more power with a lot less heat and a lot better boosted drive ratios, and those results will be even more exaggerated as we get these tighter housings. So anyway, looking forward to next episode. We're going to start testing these SXE turbos. We're getting a higher flowing fuel pump on this truck, so we can really put the feel to it. Right now we just have this little 160 pump in this guy, and it's not enough. We really want to test these turbos as we get into the bigger 364, 366, 69. These bigger turbos, we need a lot of fuel, more than this little guy has right now. So we're going to be putting on a fuel pump that can handle these kind of turbos, and we're going to put them to it and see what these guys can do. So all right, thank you very much. If we can help you out any way, give us a call, of course. If you need we can sell anything. If we're a dealer for everything. There's 100 dealers of every product, and if you need something, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. Or if you have any questions about turbos, please give me a call. I love talking turbos. Call me anytime, and we'll discuss your turbo needs and have some fun. And all right, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys later.